Good morning. Welcome to Pause to Pray. My name is Adam Schindler, and I am finally back in my home on a Friday in a stable environment. So I'm grateful that you're joining with me today. And being in a stable environment means I got a lot more to say, and I've actually made some notes, like my wife, notes and quotes. So I'm going to be sharing today with you about different kinds of governmental structures, the things that organize governmental structures in behind it, and then the foundational component of how trust is what binds societies together. So I hope that sounds interesting. I think it will be interesting. Otherwise, I wouldn't be wasting my time on it today. But thank you for joining me. So a handful of you guys are jumping on. Good morning. Good morning. Hi, Kathleen from Southern California. Good morning, Melody. Good morning, Cynthia from Colorado. I love Colorado. I will be headed back to Colorado next week. So thank you. I don't know if it's cutting out in your ear, but I'm going to turn off my music because I think it's being a little choppy. Okay, so this morning, oh, hi, Marianne from Prior Lake in Minnesota. Good morning. Good morning, Lori from Vermont, Shauna in Oklahoma. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed Stephanie yesterday. I enjoy her most every day. She dispenses with her biblical wisdom, knowledge, and personal spiritual insights in this family. But yesterday I thought was particularly good as it relates to some of the things that we experienced in Boston and back in D.C. I've been in D.C. I was in D.C., and then back to Boston, and then back to D.C. For 10 days. I was a participant in the return of a certain American politician back to the place from which he was ousted in 2021, and he gave a speech with a variety of other America First legislators, and there was some pretty good stuff out there, in my opinion, being part of the America First Policy Institute annual summit, agenda summit. So look for more from them on a bunch of stuff, but that's not the subject this morning. I'm just telling you what I did last week. Today, I want to talk to you guys. I just want to share some thoughts. Okay, because I've been in Washington and I've been participant in some interesting political and policy discussions, you know, and we at Million Voices, we really want people to engage with the political and governmental structures in your local environments. And if you're called to state or national or even international venues, then you need to understand the biblical framework and foundations that undergird the political and governmental structures. And in places where those things have been eroded, we need to restore them and work to restore them. So, because of that, one of the things that I saw when I was in Washington was just how much politicians really, talk through talking points, but some of them really get into the deep-rooted policy elements and why those things are important. And it really struck me, this truth, is that politics matters because policy matters. Okay, why does it matter you get involved with the political realm? Well, because they make policies that guard or guide and govern. Okay, they guard particular things, they guide how we act, and the overall arcing, they govern the way that we move. And so if politics matters because policy matters, well, what does policy do? It impacts you. It impacts the daily life. The certain thing that happened a couple of days ago where Senator Joe Manchin had been resisting the Democrat-led budget and spending bills that includes billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars for climate change, Green New Deal. We've got the largest increase in spending in American history and the biggest infusion of money into climate change legislation. And that's going to impact all of us dramatically. Okay. And so why does policy matter? Well, because people matter. Okay? Politics matters because policy matters, and policy matters because people matter. Okay, and so I want to talk to you guys today a little bit about some of those things, give you some structures to think about it, and then pray. All right? So to do that, I just want to lay out for you guys sort of a basic understanding about the different kinds of governmental structures there are. I'm going to give you some theories here today, some philosophical frameworks so you can understand the foundational problem that we're in our nation is the eroded lack of trust in organizations and government. Okay, that's where we're going to end. But I want to walk you down to that conclusion here so that we understand it a little bit more and don't just experience it. So to get started, there's three major kinds of governmental structures. Okay, when you think about the American government or global government or historical governments, there's really three major kinds of government that are possible. The first kind of government is monarchy. And monarchy is the rulership by a single entity. This is your king, your sovereign, all right? Monarchy is rulership by one. The second kind is aristocracy. That is rulership by the exceptional few. Okay, so there can be, like in England, Great Britain, there was the landed aristocracy. So why were they the exceptional few? Well, they owned huge chunks of land, and that's what gave them titles. Okay, so aristocracy is rulership by an exceptional few. And then the last thing here is democracy, and that is rule by the people. Okay, and those three things are your big three different major scaffoldings of the kinds of governmental forms that exist in the world. Now, they can be paired together and you can have different parts and pieces of all three, sometimes working like England has, Great Britain, the United Kingdom has, sorry, I read so much history, I don't remember what the right word to call them is. They've got a little bit of like a parliamentary monarchy system. So it's monarchy. It's got some aristocracy, though they moved off of that, and there are democratic elements. But those are your three major kinds of governmental structures. Okay, and monarchy, actually, if you look at it, that's the most stable form of government in current history today, as far as economic security and peace of mind of citizenry. There's some studies that have been done about the monarchies that rule by a single king. Okay, that's an interesting look. But the problem with monarchies is they can descend into tyranny very quickly. If one person is in power and they're not a benevolent king or queen, then they can destroy very, very quickly. Okay, so monarchies descend into tyranny. Aristocracies can descend into oligarchy pretty quickly. You know, if there are an exceptional few and they're benevolent and kind, then you're in okay shape. But those people can grab, like the Russian Federation does, and organize government control, take over state or state-run control of oil companies, and then you've got Russia's really run by a handful of oligarchs and the strongman Putin in the Kremlin. Oligarchs are aristocracy that is consolidated power. And then the last thing, democracy, of course, we know because we have learned a little bit something about the American Revolution versus the French Revolution. Democracy can descend into anarchy and mob rule very quickly, which was the story of the American Revolution. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Well, I want us to have a little bit of an understanding about the kinds of different governmental structures that exist. And when we think about politics, we often think about, in America, we are a constitutional republic. Okay, so it's like a democracy where the people are ruling. It is a democracy because the people, when I think about American government, I think about the way that the American government and society is ruled. Okay, I don't think necessarily all the time about how it was founded. And this is a difference. To have a perception about politics and government, about how we're ruled, tells you one certain kind of thing. But I think it's more important to understand how we were founded. Okay, and this is part of what we've been doing as intercessors for the last couple of years, and what I believe very strongly, and what Stephanie laid out very great, very well done yesterday, was declaring out about the founding of our nation, about the founding of America. How we were founded is more important than how we are currently being ruled, okay? And there is a different way to look even at the whole structure of governmental organization, not as much how they're ruled, but how they're founded, okay? So go with me here. There's three different ways that nations or societies can be founded. Okay, they can be ruled in one of these three major structures, but how are they founded? Well, the first way that societies are founded it's called organic. Okay, and that just means it's either blood or tribalism. You know, that a society gets bound together because it's family. It's a cultural, familial, tribal alliance. African clans and African tribes are a very great example of this organic social structure, societal structure. The Arab states, you know, the Emiratis in Dubai and a lot of the Arab states were formed and merged out of a tribal culture, okay? So, and the Scottish clans. So organic, this used to be just the basic historical way that societies were formed. This was given. But that has changed in modernity. This is not so much the way that societies are formed today. And the societies that are formed organically, we sort of look down with a bit of disdain, okay? So societies that were formed organically, there was a transition that began to happen. How? Well, strong men, warlords, the Charlemagnes of the world, and, well, he was pretty later on, Alexander the Great, and the great empire builders, Cyrus in Persia. Okay, and so what happens is the tribal cultures began to shift into an organization around a hierarchical culture. Was connect my hard line. For some reason, my Wi-Fi decides that it doesn't like streaming consistently. So apologize for that. So organic societies moved as hierarchical societies and empires began to build. Okay, these are power conquest, empire, kingdom building experiences for people. Now, the last kind of way society is formed, though, is covenantal. All right. And these covenantal are societies that are founded on a common binding agreement. Okay. Organizations, societies that have come together, not because an empire has come and absorbed them, not because they're united by blood, not because of any of those reasons, but they have found a document or an organizing principle or an agreement, and they've come together and built a society based on this kind of agreement. Now, this is the kind of society that America is. All right? We're not a tribal society. Right? We are not an organic culture. Okay? We're the melting pot, right? We've got all these different kinds of people and well, now all these different kinds of genders supposedly, but we have all of these different kinds of ethnicities and histories coming in and being part of the United States. And so we are not an organic society, and we're not a hierarchical society. Now, hierarchies do exist in all different kinds of societies, but we are not a hierarchical society founded in power, okay? We're one that was founded in covenant. And Stephanie talked about this. We talk a lot about this. I know this is the truth about the founding of America, is that we were created, our society was formed because we joined together in its origin point, and people said that we are bound together with a common ideal, a common agreement. We declared our rights and our independence. We came together in 1786 or something, I think, when the Constitution was written and ratified, we organized around a covenantal idea, a shared contract and idea. Okay, and so when we pray and when we're calling America back to God, we're calling us back to our covenantal foundations. Okay, and covenant isn't just a covenant with God. Right? The idea of covenants were well established in the ancient world prior to the covenants that God made with Moses, the covenant God made with Moses and Israel at Mount Sinai. So the call is to come back to a covenantal commitment through a binding agreement that we've made in America with our Constitution and the rule of law. Now, because that's the foundation, okay, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of handles to kind of hold on to this, even though I know my video is cutting in and out, which is distracting me and frustrating, but it is where we are. So our governmental form, though, now that we understand we're covenantally founded, our governmental form is less important. It's less important than our commitment to the covenant. Sorry, I keep getting my, I'm sorry, I'm really distracted because my internet goes bleep, bleep. So let me say this again. Our covenantal form matters less than our governmental form matters less than our covenantal commitment to two things, okay? How our government is structured matters less than how it was founded. How we are ruled is not as important. It is important, but not as important as how we were founded and how we stay committed to our foundation. Okay, so our form of government matters less than our personal and corporate covenantal commitment to two things. One, we have to have a covenantal commitment to the shared responsibility of the individuals in this nation. Okay, personal responsibility to the collective good of the people is absolutely fundamental. Okay, and then two, we have to be committed to understanding and enforcing the restraining and the limits of the power of any governmental authority. Okay? Our covenantal commitment, our contract with each other and with this nation at its founding was committed to personal responsibility as it relates to the collective whole and placing restrictions or limits upon any power that has authority over us. Okay? Those are the two things that matter the most, and is what we, the people, need to begin to understand again. Okay, because when we give up our personal responsibility, and when we stop understanding that we are personally responsible collectively for the condition that we find ourselves in, you know, when we give up all morality and our personal morality begins to decay and we begin to accept and receive and promote and spend money on the kinds of things that we watch and listen to and read that destroy our soul, when personal morality begins to decay, we are responsible to the collective whole that begins to experience that decay out in culture. Okay, what we do in our own private life impacts how the culture experiences this nation because we create that. Now, one individual doing something outside of all the others isn't going to impact it, but when a bunch of individuals begin to slide and decay and we see a mass change in individual morality, you'll see a societal shift. Okay, and I want to make one last point. I'm sorry, guys. I'm all over the place today. I was really excited for this. I just got distracted. And I keep saying I'm distracted, which is distracting me. But what happens when this personal responsibility to the collective whole really begins to fall apart and decay? And what I've seen a lot, and what I just want to finish here and then pray on, is the decay of trust, the fundamental decay of trust. Okay, and being in Washington, everyone that you talk to and everything that you're hearing is always filtered through this sort of cynicism of motivation and what's their real meaning and what are they really trying to get after. And you can't just take somebody and what they say at face value and think, oh yeah, it seems like a good idea. Like there's always an angle, or there's a power play, right? Politics is about power and who sets the rules for power and who owns the policies. And at least that's the vibe, you know, that you can get sucked into pretty quickly. But larger than just the political sphere, our society has had a decaying trust in organizations, institutions, and individuals. Those people that we should trust, we're no longer trusting. And what happens when trust really gets decayed down to this granular level? Right? Trust is foundational to our life. Let's do a thought exercise. Imagine that you woke up the next morning, tomorrow morning, you wake up and you realize that you don't trust anybody or anything. Okay? And you're done trusting. Maybe you've been hurt. Maybe you've had a horrible traumatic experience and you decide tomorrow that you're not going to trust anything anymore. Okay? So you wake up and you get out of bed and you walk into the bathroom and you pick up your toothbrush and you get out some Colgate and you put it on your toothbrush and you realize, is there poison in this toothpaste? What about fluoride? Does fluoride really kill me? How much fluoride is in my toothpaste? And you start looking on the back. And you're like, I can't use any toothpaste. So you just decide that you're going to, because you don't trust it. So you decide you're going to turn on the water and just brush your teeth with water. And then you start worrying about the fluoride in the water. You're like, well, is my local water company trustworthy? Have they filtered this water? Is there, how many parts per million of fluoride and chlorine? And is there arsenic in my water? So you decide that you can't drink the water either. You know, and so you go into the closet and you decide you're going to change your clothes and go downstairs and make some coffee, but you start to worry. You start to put on your favorite t-shirt and you think, oh, this was made in China. Did these people have slave labor? Did they pay their people a righteous wage? I can't trust that I would wear this. Maybe there's some sort of sickness. Maybe COVID is in my cotton and I can't trust that I could put on the clothes, right? You can see where this would go, right? Down to turning on your cell phone and whether somebody's watching or listening to you, into driving, whether someone's going to steer off the road and careen into your car, right? Or what about police and authority?